And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, I'm going to talk about the I'm going to talk about the biggest questions for all of the ranked college teams going into the NCAA season. And I'm just looking at my phone, and apparently somebody sold a pair of Falcons at Panther tickets for $1.80. Oh my lord! If any of you guys are interested in football, we have other football podcasts. If you guys are interested in listening to that, so go ahead and check out the channel if you guys like football as well. I personally like football, but obviously, time to talk basketball. So, excuse me, but let's go ahead and see where we left off on this list. Now, I believe I left off at Baylor, if I'm not mistaken. The Baylor Bears is the team that I left off of in the previous segment. So if you're interested in the top 6 teams, as well as Rutgers, because I mentioned Rutgers in that last segment, and my opinion and the biggest questions for those teams, then you can go ahead and tune in to the last video that I just recently uploaded, and that is part 1 of the biggest questions for the college rankings, if you guys are interested in what the questions are for these teams and NCAA basketball. But we're going to start with Iowa State Cyclones. They were ranked 7th last year in the NCAA to start out. So we're going to go ahead and start out with their first question, which is, will TJ Otzelberger find more offensive pop in his team? Like, Iowa State, they've been one of the best defensive teams in the nation, like in the country, and like for the past few seasons. But on offense, they haven't really been that efficient. Like, they've been in the bottom half of the Big 12 in offensive efficiency in every single one of the years that they've been in the bottom part of the defensive efficiency. So they are a pretty solid defensive team, but when it comes to putting the ball in the basket, that's where they really struggle. And Curtis Jones moved into the starting lineup, and he could probably boost the team offensively. And they also added Deshaun Jackson from Charlotte and Nate Hayes from Northern Iowa to help out the offense as well. So we'll see if their offense can be a little bit better, while at the same time their defense doesn't take that much of a hit in terms of efficiency. So that's going to be the big question for them. And next on this list is Duke. They were ranked 8th last season. And the big question for them is, can Cooper Flagg prove that he really is the best player in the country? When Cooper Flagg was competing against the Olympic national team, everybody was like flocking to him. Everybody was just like, wow, he played very well. Wow, the United States team almost lost to them. Wow, he was phenomenal, right? And there's a lot of hype around Cooper Flagg. A lot of people think he's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. And now it's time for him to prove it. And it's a really big question, of course, but those are the expectations that we have for Cooper Flagg. And only 3 freshmen have won the Wooden Award, which I'm going to list them off right now. Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, and Zion Williamson, and Flagg is good enough to be in the contention and be in that running on that list. So, and listen to the names that I just mentioned: Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, and Zion Williamson. Those freshmen, when they won that award, they went on to go into the NBA, and they went on to being one of the best players, some of the best players that the NBA has seen. Kevin Durant, for one, became a top 2 small forward. And Anthony Davis, he's been a dominant big man for the longest time. And Zion Williamson, yes, he keeps getting injured, but when he's healthy, he is a dominant player. And next team on this list is the Arizona Wildcats. And, it should also be mentioned that Cooper Flagg is ranked number 1 on ESPN's top 100 list in, college basketball players. So number 9 is the Arizona Wildcats. They were ranked number 9 last season. And now the big question is, can Arizona get rid of its little bugaboo in March Madness? And what does that mean? The Wildcats have been a 1 or a 2 seed in each of the last 3 NCAA tournaments, but they have not made the Elite 8 in any of those. They lost to the 5th seed Houston. They also lost to 15th seed Princeton, and the 6th-seeded Clemson. While their record and seeding might take a hit moving to the Big 12, playing in the best league in the country should prepare them better for single elimination basketball games. Because that's one of the things that a lot of people don't like to bring up when talking about these kinds of things. It's that these tournament games, they're single game eliminations, and anything can happen in single game elimination. Like, one team can have a ridiculous shooting night, the other team can just be flat out awful. And if one thing doesn't go your way, then it could really, you're done. Like, you're just over, which is completely different than in the NBA, where it's like definitely the best team is going to win because you're playing in a series. And this is sort of why there's a little bit of luck mixed into a lot of these games, especially when I like to talk about football and the football seasons, especially when football is also single elimination games, which, and a lot of things can happen in football. Same thing with college football. Like, when you have these single elimination games, it's anybody's game. And that's something that a lot of people don't really like to think about. Now, 10th on the power rankings is North Carolina, the Tar Heels, for those of you guys who are confusing. So they were ranked 10th last season, and the big question for them is, will they be able to dominate down low as it has been in recent seasons? So it doesn't look like they're going to dominate the paint this season or on the glass, and that's sort of a common trend that North Carolina likes to do. And it's been a staple and the success of Carolina basketball teams under both Roy Williams and Hubert Davis. But after swinging and missing on a couple of portal centers last spring, the Tar Heels' typical size and proven production isn't really there. One of the key transfer players, Ven Allen Lubin, is only 6'8", while Jalen Withers and Jalen Washington haven't been nearly as consistent as you'd like. So that's really going to be the big question for them. Do they have enough big men in order to actually be effective? Next team on this list is the Auburn Tigers. They were ranked 11th in the NCAA last season. And the big question for them is JP Pegas, forgive me if I botched that last name, the answer at the point guard position? So Bruce Pearl hasn't really had a high-level point guard in the last few years, dealing with a lot of inconsistent decision-making of Wendell Green in 2021 and in 2023, and growing pains of the 5-star freshman Aden Holloway last season. Furman transfer Pegas was arguably the best player in SoCon, but he'll have a lot on his shoulders, and freshman Tahad Pittafor is also another option for the team. And since we are running out of time for just this first segment, I'm going to go ahead and go into our short break and then continue on with this NCAA segment. So we left off at 11, so I'm going to continue off at 12 and see how much farther we can go on in this list in the fourth segment right after this short break. So be sure to stay tuned for that.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.